So today we're going to look at the Sāleyyakā Sutta, which is called the Discourse to the Brahmins of Sala. This is Sutta 41 in the Book of Middle Length Sayings. Right? So this is the middle. So this is the translation which I've chosen. This is from the Middle Length Discourses of the Buddha, translation of the Majjhima Nikaya. So those of you who have a copy of this sutta is on page 379. So you could refer, because in my talk I would paraphrase some of the paragraphs due to shortage of time. Okay. So before we start, I think it is important that we compose our minds and check our intentions, why we are here this morning, and to remember four very important aspects when we listen to the Dhamma. Okay. So the first thing is to remember the words that we hear. Secondly, is to reflect on the meaning of the words that we hear. Thirdly, for us to analyze what we have heard, whether they are provisional truth or they are definitive truth. And finally, the fourth reliance, which is obviously the most important, is for us to be able to put into practice what we have heard from the Dhamma. Okay, so I think that's a very important part of composing our mind when we listen to any Dhamma. Now, today's talk is basically about actions. In fact, in the discourse itself, as we will see, it talks about what are the actions that we perform through our mind, through our speech, and through our body. So they are called the three doors where actions are manifested. And karma, as we have been saying for the previous sessions, refers to volitional actions that's been performed through body, speech, and mind. So today's talk is very much based on that. And the structure of the talk is to have a quick preview, is that you have got this group of people, lay householders, Brahmin householders from Sala, asking the Buddha about the causality of rebirth. Why is one born in the states of deprivation, for example, the animal realm, the ghost realms, the hell realms, while others make it to the heavenly worlds? So then the Buddha analyzes what kind of actions. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at this discourse, the word karma may not appear as a word itself, but the other word which constantly appears is conduct or charya. So it basically means one's actions, volitional actions. So it's synonymous with karma, right? So what is it that, what kind of karma, what kind of actions, what kind of conduct that we perform that will take one to lower rebirth? So this is where we get first introduced to what is popularly called the 10 causes of unwholesome actions and the 10 causes of wholesome action. So many of us are familiar with the 5 precepts. This morning we recited the 5 precepts. So the 10 causes of wholesome actions, the 10 causes of unwholesome actions, you could say is an extension of the 5 precepts, as later we will see. So here the Buddha is saying that the wholesome actions should be strengthened in oneself until they become habitual. All right, so that we create or we develop what is called habitual karma. Now, while this discourse talks very much about how one's action can lead us to be reborn in various planes of existence, and if you have been attending the previous sessions, I did mention that in Buddhist cosmology, we talk about 31 planes of existence. You could actually compress it into 6 realms, though in some of the earlier texts, it talks about 5 realms instead of 6. So the 5 or 6 realms refer basically to both the happy realms as well as the unhappy realms. Okay. So, but the last part of this sutta itself deals with the aspiration which one may have for rebirth at the time of death, but one's previous karma might be such that it will support such aspirations. And I think if you had attended the previous sutta called the Sankarupapati Sutta, talks about aspiration is very useful, very important for us to be reborn in a plane of existence. that we aspire to, but it must also be accompanied by 5 very important qualities, right, which we spoke about in the previous sutta. So aspirations are important, but it has to be accompanied by specific qualities. Now, the background of this sutta is that it opens with the Brahmin householders of Sala asking the Buddha why some people are born in happy states while others are born in suffering states. And the Buddha says this is due to conduct. So if you have a copy of the text, or if you want to make reference to the Pali itself, you find that the word is charya, which actually means action, conduct, right? So whether they are unwholesome, akusala, or wholesome. So the sutta begins, as usual, right? From the thus have I heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was wandering by stages in the Kosalan country. It's a large sangha of monks. Eventually, he arrived at a Kosalan Brahmin village named Sala. So that's para 1. Then the Brahmin householders of Sala mentioned that they heard about the Buddha, who has a good reputation as a teacher of gods and men, and his monks have come to Sala. They said it is good to see such arahants. They then went to meet the Buddha, and after exchange of greetings, asked him questions. So what I've done is in para 2 and 3, I've actually paraphrased it. So in the actual sutta itself, you look at the text that's been translated. Here, the Brahmin householders say that they have heard a good reputation of the Buddha. Now, what good reputation are the Brahmin householders referring to? So then it becomes like a stock passage where you find that he refers to the Buddha as having the nine qualities that we just recited this morning. Itipiso, Bhagava, Arahant, Samma, Sambuddho, and so on. So it's got these 9 qualities. So he has a good reputation. He's also a teacher of gods and men. He's a Sattha Deva Manusanang. And that his monks have come to Sala. So to the Brahmin householders, they say it is good to see such enlightened beings. So this concept of arahants, as you can see, was also in existence during the time of the Buddha. So it was very much within the context of the Indian situation where the Buddha was born, that they believed that there are such enlightened beings, which they call arahants. So then they went to meet the Buddha, and after an exchange of greetings, they asked him a question. What is the question that the Brahmin householders? So you see, these Brahmins, they are householders. So they are not monks, they are not samanas, okay? They are householders. So this is the Brahmin's questions. Master Gautama, what is the cause and condition why some beings here on the dissolution of the body after death? So you can see this is like a stock passage. If you have been following the previous sutta, you'll find that the paragraph here has been phrased rather similarly. Yeah? So on the dissolution of the body after death, reappear in states of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. So which are the unhappy destinations in Buddhist cosmology? So primarily we refer to the realm of the animals, the realm of the hungry ghosts, the realm of the hell beings. Okay. Sometimes in later texts, the realm of the asuras, or the gigantic or the titanic beings are also included. So they are unhappy destinations. And what is the cause and condition, and why some beings here on the dissolution of the body after death reappear in a happy destination, even in the heavenly realm? So again, in Buddhist cosmology, which are the happy destinations? So the human realm is considered a happy destination. The heavenly realms, and if you remember, I mentioned that in Buddhist cosmology, we talk about 6 central heavenly realms, right? From this realm of the 4 heavenly gods, right up to the 6 realms. So these are called the essential realms, or the essential heavenly realms. And above the essential heavenly realms, you also have the realms of the Brahmas. Okay, for example, where one is reborn there through the cultivation of the jhanas. So we talk about the 4 form meditation, the form jhanas. So then one is reborn or reappear in the world, in the realm of the Brahmas. the four form realms. Okay, and in the teaching on the formless meditation, then there's also another four realms that correspond to the realm of the formless realms, right? In the higher realms. So all in, you have got 31 realms of existence. Okay, so these are happy realms and differentiated from the unhappy realms, which are primarily the animal realm, the heavenly, the hell realms, and the ghost realms, or the afflicted beings. Okay, so here the question the Brahmins ask is, what is the cause and condition why some beings here, after they die, they are reborn in unhappy destinations? And likewise, why is it that after they pass away in this realm, they are reborn in a happy destination, even in the heavenly realm? Okay, so let's see what is the Buddha's reply. So this is the Buddha's reply. It is conduct. So the word here is charya. So here in this sutta, the Buddha did not use the word karma, but he used the word charya, which is conduct. So the Buddha's reply is, it is conduct not in accordance with Dhamma, unrighteous conduct, that some beings on the dissolution of the body after death reappear in states of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, in hell. So here you notice that the Buddha was very, very clear. He's talking about an existence after the being has died. All right, so it is conduct not in accordance with Dhamma. So let's see later on what is meant by conduct. What kind of conduct that is not in accordance with Dhamma? Now, this word Dhamma here, we usually, there's so many meanings for this word Dhamma, right? This morning when we recited taking refuge, he talks about taking refuge in the Buddha, in the Dhamma, and in the Sangha. So in that sense, we take refuge in the Buddha, the teacher, in the teachings, and in the holy disciples. But the word Dhamma has a much wider meaning. Okay, the word Dhamma itself, or in Sanskrit, is called Dharma. It comes from the word Dhariti, which means to hold or to support. So it is something that supports one's spiritual practice. So that's one meaning. But the word Dhamma itself existed even during the time of the Buddha. All right, it is a key concept with multiple meanings in Indian religions. For example, even the Jains have got this concept of Dhamma. Even Sikhism has got this concept of Dhamma. Likewise in Hinduism. Some of you have heard of this well-known Vipassana teacher called Goenka, right? Some of you may even have attended some of his teachings. You will obviously notice that he very seldom refers to Buddhism, the word Buddhism. In fact, he uses the word Dhamma. So that when he uses the word Dhamma, so Hindus, Jains, Sikh, right? They have no problems. They can attend. But if he says, oh, I teach Vipassana according to Buddhism, then people will say, oh, I'm not a Buddhist, so I wouldn't be. So the word Dhamma has got a much more neutral, much more expansive, wider meaning in that sense. Okay? So Dhamma. For example, Dhamma is also linked to the next word, can also mean a righteous conduct. For example, you have this word Dhamma Raja. Dhamma Raja means a leader who acts based on Dhamma, or a king who runs the country based on Dhamma, based on righteous conduct, right? So it is conduct, that means charya, that is not in accordance with Dhamma, which is considered as unrighteous conduct, that some beings on the dissolution of the body after death reappear in states of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, in hell. So likewise, then the Buddha explains it is conduct in accordance with Dhamma, righteous conduct. Some beings on the dissolution of the body after death reappear in happy destination, even in heavens. So this word righteous conduct, you find that the Buddha used many times. For example, when he's talking to lay people in particular, like when he was preaching to Dikajanu about the eight aspects of happiness, 8 ways to find happiness. He says that one can be wealthy, one can be rich, one can earn a lot of money by righteous conduct. That is acceptable. So that is good. So any wealth, any income that is earned through righteous conduct is said to be in accordance with Dhamma. But any wealth, any income that is earned not in accordance with Dhamma is considered as unrighteous conduct. Right? So at the end of today's talk, you will obviously be able to understand what the Buddha meant when he talked about in accordance with Dhamma, what constitutes as righteous conduct. So this is what the Buddha's replied. Conduct in accordance with Dhamma will lead to happy destination. Conduct not in accordance with Dhamma will lead to unhappy destination. Then the Brahmins of Sala requested the Buddha to expound in detail, which he agreed. Again, it's a stock passage. The Buddha usually starts by giving a fairly concise explanation. Then the listeners would say, "Oh, Master Gautama, what you have mentioned, we do not understand. So could you please explain in detail?" So this is what exactly the Brahmins of Sala said, and they requested the Buddha to expound in detail what he meant, which the Buddha obviously agreed. Now, this is what the Buddha then explains in para 6 and 7 about the various kinds of conduct. So here the Buddha talks about conduct through the body, through speech, and through mind. So this is what the Buddha explains in para 6 and 7. So there are 3 kinds of bodily conduct not in accordance with Dhamma, unrighteous conduct. 4 kinds of verbal conduct not in accordance with Dhamma, unrighteous conduct. And 3 kinds of mental conduct not in accordance with Dhamma, unrighteous conduct. All right? So 6 and 7, all right? This is what the Buddha talks about it. Then in para 8, 9, and 10, I paraphrase this, but I'll read to you the exact words is mentioned in the text. So I've just paraphrased it to summarize it. So 3 types of misconduct. In other words, the 3 kinds of unrighteous bodily conduct. So bodily conduct or conduct through the body, which is not in accordance with Dhamma, which is unrighteous. This refers to killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. 4 kinds of conduct through speech, which is not in accordance with Dhamma, which is unrighteous. This is when one speaks falsely, one speaks maliciously, one speaks harshly, and one gossips. And then the Buddha concludes with 3 kinds of conduct through the mind, which is not in accordance with Dhamma, which is unrighteous. And the 3 words used are covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. Okay, we look at each one of them. So, but let me read to you para 8, which is where the Buddha explains about what is defined as killing. I'll just pick one as an example here. Para 8 here is what the Buddha says. And householders are these 3 kinds of bodily conduct not in accordance with the Dhamma, unrighteous conduct. In the first one, the Buddha says about killing. Here someone kills living beings. He is murderous, he is bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, he is merciless to living beings. So that's considered as the first of the bodily misconduct. And when it comes to stealing, this is what is explained in para 8, the text itself. So the Buddha defines here as, he takes what is not given. He takes by way of theft the wealth and property of others in the village or in the forest. Well, during the Buddha's time, right, he talks about the village or the forest. So we could include towns and cities. Right? And then as to the third section, misconduct, Buddha says, he misconducts himself in sensual pleasures. He has intercourse with women who are protected by their mother, father, mother and father, brother, sister, or relatives, who have a husband, who are protected by law, and even with those who are garlanded in token of betrothal. That is how there are 3 kinds of bodily conduct, not in accordance with Dhamma, unrighteous conduct. Okay? So these are the actual text itself in the sutta. So the importance the Buddha gave to killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct as misconduct through the body. All right, so you got to the body, killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So which you're all familiar with when you recite the 5 precepts. When you say panati pata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami, or non-killing, and when you recite stealing adinadana and the sexual misconduct kamisu michachara. Right, so these are the 3 true bodily misconduct. Now, in the commentaries, it also explained what actually constitutes killing, and this has got a lot of relevance to karma itself. So killing, as you can see, the word panati pata. The word pana itself means anything, a living being, a living thing that breathes. From the word pana, many of you heard of this word pranic, right? Pranic healing. So the word pranic healing comes from the word pranik, prana. So prana is Sanskrit for pana. So pana is Pali. So pranic healing, all right, like through breathing, okay, pranic healing. So panati pata. So here refers to a living being. So technically it means a living being that breathes. So that's the first. If you kill a being that breathes, right, that has got a mind. So in Buddhism, we define a living being as comprising mind and matter. Then secondly, there must be an awareness. That means you know it is a living being. So which means if you do not know, then it is not considered as killing. Thirdly, would be intention to kill, right? The intention to kill. So here it goes back to the Buddhist point about intention, right? Cetana, right? In the Sāleyyakā Sutta, the Buddha said, what is karma? Karma is intention. So the intention is very important. And then number 4 will be the effort made to kill. All right, and finally, the living being dies. So these are the 5 aspects or 5 conditions for killing. Right. So it's not in the sutta, not in this particular sutta, but it's explained elsewhere, especially in the commentary. So I thought I'd just explain that standard. So likewise, stealing, you have got you got 5 conditions. It's another's property. Your awareness of another's property. You have the intention to take the effort, make the effort, and the consequent removal of the object. Right? So sexual misconduct. Now, sexual misconduct from the word kamesu michachara. So here, as in the earlier text, it mentions about those who are not to be violated, minors below consent age, betrothed to another, one who's married, bound by vows like monastics, and one who doesn't give consent. Now, of course, this happens during the Buddha's time, where it's very much from the perspective of a male. So here it talks about men towards women, right? Not the other way around. Okay. So sexual misconduct is said to have taken place. Number 1, if it's one of those forbidden person. I think in the commentaries it talks about 20 types of persons not to be transgressed. Right? And then the intention to enjoy, the effort to engage, and the contact of the sexual organs. So sexual misconduct has taken place. So that's the 3. Now let's move on to the verbal misconduct, speech. All right. So speech, in the 5 precepts, you find that the 4th of your 5 precepts talks about lying. Right. Talks about lying. Whereas in this discourse itself, in the 10 unwholesome actions, lying has been extended to encompass 4 aspects of verbal misconduct. So there's lying, there's malicious speech, there's harsh speech, and there's idle chatter. Okay. So let me read what in para 9 what the Buddha meant by 4 kinds of verbal misconduct. Okay. Here someone speaks falsehood. This is para 9 for those who have a copy of the text. When summoned to a court or to a meeting or to his relatives' presence or to his guild or to the royal family's presence, and when he's questioned, for example, as a witness. So, good man, tell what you know. Not knowing, he says, I know. Knowing, he says, I do not know. Okay. Not seeing, he says, I see. Or seeing, he says, I do not see. In full awareness, he speaks falsehood in his own ends or for another ends, or for some trifling worldly ends. So that's been defined as lying in the text itself. Then the Buddha goes on in Para 9 about what constitutes malicious speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. He speaks maliciously. He repeats elsewhere what he has heard here in order to divide those people from this. Or he repeats to these people what he has heard elsewhere in order to divide these people from those. So a malicious speech, the intention is you try to break up the harmony of someone. So that's the meaning as explained in this text itself, malicious speech. Then the Buddha talks about harsh speech. Okay. All right. He speaks harshly. He utters such words which are rough, hard, hurtful to others, offensive to others, bordering on anger, unconducive to concentration. So in harsh speech, the main aspects is there's a lot of anger. All right. Whereas in malicious speech, anger may be there, but he creates division. He breaks up the harmony of people. So that's malicious speech. And finally, idle chatter. He is a gossip. He speaks at the wrong time. He speaks what is not fact. He speaks what is useless. He speaks contrary to the Dhamma and the discipline. And he speaks at the wrong time. So words that he speaks are worthless, unreasonable, immoderate, and unbeneficial. Right. If you remember earlier, there was one discourse which I discussed with you. It's called the Abhayaraja Kumara Sutta. So the Buddha says, whenever we say something, we got to make sure that whatever we say is useful, is true. Occasionally it can be pleasant, occasionally be unpleasant. Okay? And I also quoted to you another speech, or rather another sutta which the Buddha taught called the Vacca Sutta, where the Buddha says one's speech should also be timely. So even though sometimes certain thing is true, we got to find the right time to say it. Okay, so in the Vacca Sutta, the Buddha says, the speech is not only true and useful, it's pleasant, it is spoken with a gentle heart, but it must also be spoken on a timely basis. We speak at the right time, not at the wrong. Okay, so this is what the Buddha talks about, verbal misconduct. Now, again, very quickly, each of these have got conditions. So for lying to take place, first of all, it must be an untrue statement that is true. There's an intention to deceive, right? So you have an intention here. You have the cetana to deceive, and then you make the effort. The effort could be verbal, the effort could be physical, and then the other person believes. So that's considered as breaking the precept to lie. Malicious speech is always directed at another person. You have the intention to create disharmony, to create a division, and then you make the effort. Like in the text, it says you just repeat half of what you hear from one place, and then you added other facts to create anger in the other person's mind. So with the intention that you will divide, break up that harmony, and then the person is alienated. So the person is harsh speech. Again, directed at another person, you have a hateful mind, you have thoughts of anger, and the person is verbally abused. So you actually express those harsh speech, parusa vacha. And the last word is frivolous chatter, intention to chatter without purpose, act of chattering, right? So only two conditions. So you have the intention to chatter, and then without any purpose, right? When I first studied Buddhism many years ago, obviously, and when I first heard this Pali word, sampapalapa, first thing that came to my mind was the Malay word sampah. Sampah, like rubbish. So, which is a Malay or Indonesian word which means rubbish. So, which means that we're talking rubbish, right? The word sampah. So, the intention to chatter without purpose, act of chattering. Now, I just put on this slide, for example, there's this word called euphemism, like polite conversation, like asking about another's health, telling fairy tales to children, saying someone is asleep when that person has died, it's not idle chatter. For example, you walk into the office, the morning, you have a very bad day, maybe before walking to the office, and then you just say good morning to everybody, but in actual fact in your mind, you actually did not mean it. So, but it is a natural way of just, when you meet someone, you say good morning. So any well-intentioned talk in the reading, greed, hate, vision, that is also not frivolous. So idle chatter would be something that is something to do with talking something that has got no relevance at all, not useful. Okay, so let's look at the final one, which is the mental misconduct, view of the time factor here. So here the Buddha talks about 3 aspects, which is the covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. Right? Covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. Now the Pali word is abhijja. Just as the English word covetousness or covert is not a very common word, it's more biblical, I think. This word abhijja is not very commonly used. But in the Satipatthana Sutta, for example, where the Buddha talks about the 4 aspects that supports mindfulness, right? The 4 aspects of mindfulness. The 4th one is actually vinaya, abhijja, domanassa. In other words, free from covetousness and suffering, or free from covetousness, or free from desires and suffering. So what is covetousness? It is wanting to possess something that belongs to others illegally and with evil desires. So it is largely rooted in greed and is akin to attachment to sense desire. So what's the difference between greed and covetousness? Greed is like, for example, maybe greed, the Pali word is lobha, right? So maybe you notice that your friend has just got a brand new PC. So you say, oh, how I wish I had that. So it's just a thought, that's wonderful, but it stops there. But when your greed becomes covetousness, it's how I wish that I could take it, even though it's not mine. So it's something that belongs to others, and with your intention that you wish that it is yours. So it has taken on to the next step. Okay? So it's attachment to sense desire. So let's see what is mentioned here in the suttas itself. This is in para 10. And householders are there 3 kinds of mental conduct, not in accordance with the Dhamma, unrighteous conduct. Here, someone is covetous. He covets the wealth and property of others first. Or what belongs to another be mine? Or so that is covetousness. Then ill will, or he has a mind of ill will and intentions of hate. May these beings be slain and slaughtered. May they be cut off, perish, or be annihilated. Or he has wrong views, distorted vision. Thus, there is nothing given, nothing offered, nothing sacrificed, no fruit or result of good and bad actions, no this world, no other world, no mother, no father, no beings who are reborn spontaneously, no good and virtuous actions, no good and virtuous recluses and Brahmins in the world who have themselves realized by strict, by direct knowledge, declare this world and the other world. So these are the 3. So ill will, feeling of malice, especially extreme anger or hatred with the intention to cause pain, suffering, and even death to another person. So it is one of the 5 hindrances and 10 fetters. So this word is vyapada. Sometimes the word for anger, you are familiar with the Pali word called dosa. So vyapada is a much more serious, more extreme form of dosa. It's a much more extreme form of anger or hatred, where you wish that someone would suffer, would even die, right? So you have that really evil decision, intention. Okay? And then wrong views, which I quoted to you just now in the text itself. You read the text, which is on para 10, it talks about basically not understanding the law of karma, not accepting the law of cause and effect, not understanding the Four Noble Truths, and not seeing things as they really are. Okay? So this is called Miccāditthi. It's a very big topic, and in the book of middle length, in the first discourse of the long discourses, the Brahmajala Sutta, Buddha identifies something like 62 different wrong views. So many wrong views. And you know that in Noble Eightfold Path, the first of the Eightfold Paths is called right views. The right views are very important. Now, then the Buddha goes on in para 12, 13, and 14, and basically talking about righteous conduct. So here is just the reverse. So I'm not going to repeat exactly the same. So what we have heard early on about the unrighteous conduct not in accordance with the Dhamma. So here we're talking about righteous conduct or actions which are in accordance with the Dhamma. So basically, again, you've got three kinds of righteous bodily conduct, which is one does not kill, one does not steal, one does not have sexual misconduct. Four kinds of righteous verbal conduct. So it's the reverse. It means one does not speak falsely, one does not speak maliciously, one does not speak harshly, one does not gossip. Finally, three kinds of righteous mental conduct. One does not covet, one does not hate, nor does one have wrong views. So before I look into the antidotes for each one of it, I just want to mention that when we talk about conduct, or of course the other word which comes to mind is this word called sila, in Pali, or shila in Sanskrit. Sila, which is translated as morality or ethics. Now, in Buddhism, we have to understand that when Buddha talks about morality, he's basically talking about two types of morality. One is called charita sila, or duties or actions that we should do. All right, the other is varita sila, actions which one should avoid. The 5 precepts, for example, falls into what is called varita sila. Varita spelled as V-A-R-I-T-T-A, varita. That means actions which avoids, which avoids unwholesome actions, unskillful actions. Like we avoid killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking drugs and intoxicants. So those are called varita. So varita sila, telling us what not to do. But in Buddhism, there's a lot about telling us what to do, and that is called charita sila. So duties one should perform. We read a lot of these. For example, if you read the Sīgalovada Sutta, that is called the Buddha gave to the young man Sigala. So you find here the Buddha talks about what one should do in terms of charita sila. Charita, again, from the word charita means action, right? Positive actions. So, and Mangala Sutta, Buddha talks about 38 types of blessings. What are the things that we should do? Support our parents, support our father and mother, to be well versed in the arts and sciences, for example. So those are actions that one should do. So those falls into charita sila. So I'm not going to go into the para by para subsequently, because it's just the reverse. So I'm just going to talk about what is called negative bodily actions and then the positive bodily action. So the negative will be the varita sila, the positive bodily action will be the charita sila. So far we talked about the 10 unwholesome actions, right? For killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. And then when we read this discourse itself, it tells you wholesome or conduct in accordance with Dhamma means non-killing, non-stealing, no sexual misconduct. But elsewhere, not in this sutta itself, but elsewhere, the Buddha talks about positive bodily action. So instead of killing, one has compassion. Instead of stealing, one has generosity. Instead of sexual misconduct, one practices contentment. So likewise, you have the negative verbal actions. You have lying, you have malicious speech, you have harsh speech, you have idle chatter. So what is the varita? Sorry, what is the charita actions, the charita aspects of the 4 unwholesome actions? So instead of lying, we talk about speaking the truth. Instead of malicious speech, we talk about kind speech. Instead of harsh speech, we talk about gentle speech. And we talk about idle chatter, we talk about mindful speech, or speaking at the right time, something that is true, that is useful. So each one of it, you find that there is the varita aspects of sila, that means telling us what not to do, and you have the positive aspects telling us what we should do. Okay? And finally, on the mental aspects, we talk about the negative mental actions, all right, about covetousness, about ill will, about wrong views. So instead of not being covetous, we should rejoice in the happiness, in the goodness of others. Instead of ill will, we should develop loving kindness. Instead of wrong views, we should develop right views. Okay, so these are the various examples here. Now, finally, para 15, 16, 17. So here and subsequently, so this discourse, the Buddha is saying that if you observe those righteous conduct and you hope or you make aspiration that upon death you will reappear in the company of well-to-do noble Brahmins, then it is possible that after that you will reappear as such, because you have already made the aspiration. But please remember, read this sutta in the context of the earlier sutta which I mentioned to you, the Sankara Papati Sutta, or the aspirations. So likewise, then Buddha went on from para 18 to 42. You notice that every paragraph, the Buddha goes into details about each of the heavenly realms. Remember, I mentioned there are 31, so I'm going to go through all the 31 realms of existence. As I also mentioned in my previous class, if you're really interested in the 31 realms of existence, there is a book called The 31 Planes of Existence. It is a collection of cassette recordings which have been transcribed into a book by Bhante Subano. So you can even find them on the internet. It's available on PDF. So here, Buddha in para 18 to 42, the Buddha basically talks about rebirths in the 6 heavenly realms, rebirths in the 16 Brahma form realms. Now it is 16 because there are 4 form realms, and each of the 4 have got 4 layers. So 4 times 4, you got 16. All right. So you got 16 Brahma form realms, and gods of the 4 Brahma formless realms. Okay, so it is possible that you can be reborn. Now, finally, para 43, as again, if you read some other Buddhist texts, the Buddha ends always by saying that if you observe righteous conduct and you make that aspiration, that by realizing for oneself with direct knowledge, I might here and now enter upon and abide in the deliverance of mind, wisdom that are taintless, and with the destruction of the taints. It's possible that by realizing direct knowledge, one will here and now enter upon and abide in the deliverance of mind and wisdom. Now, this paragraph means that one is no longer reborn in any of the 31 planes of existence, because the 31 planes of existence is still very much within the realm of samsara, a realm of cycle of birth and rebirth. So the ultimate aim of Buddhist teachings is to get out of the cycle of birth and rebirth. Okay? But in order to get out of this cycle of birth and rebirth, one will have to start with the practice or the observance of righteous conduct in accordance with the Dhamma. But eventually, through practice, one then realizes for oneself direct knowledge. What is this direct knowledge? Direct knowledge refers to insight knowledge, vipassana jnana. Okay, that is why Buddha talks about vipassana or jnana, knowledge, through direct knowledge. Then you abide in the deliverance of mind and wisdom that is taintless. Taintless means no longer any defilements, right? In other words, the 10 fetters have all been eradicated, right? Then we have destroyed the taints, the asavas, outflows, the taints, right? In Pali, it's called the asavas. So they have all been destroyed, or the fetters, like in the samyojana, in the 10 fetters. And the Buddha said it is possible that by realizing direct knowledge, for example, if you read the Satipatthana Sutta, it's called the path to direct knowledge, of realizing the 4 aspects of mindfulness through direct knowledge. The one will here and now enter upon and abide in the deliverance of mind and wisdom. Why? Because he observed righteous conduct. So Sila is very important. So the practice of meditation, while it's very important, is crucial, but one must always start with Sila. Sila forms the foundation. So as mentioned in this discourse itself, without Sila, without right conduct which is accordant with the Dhamma, one will not be able to attain enlightenment. Okay? So finally, para 44, the Brahmin householder Sala then said to the Blessed One. Again, this is a stock passage. Magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. He has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning what is upright, what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp, the darkness for those with eyesight to see far. So that's the usual stock passage that you find in the discourse. So, paragraph 44, the Brahmins of Sala said, we go to Master Gautama for refuge and to the Dhamma and Sangha of monks. From today, let Master Gautama accept us as lay followers who have gone to him for refuge. So this concept of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, you find originates even during the time of the Buddha, when lay people, after listening to the teachings of the Buddha, they have confidence, they have faith, and then they say, I go to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha for refuge. Okay? So I think that concludes the sutta. So let us end with a short prayer on the four sublime states. And when we make this prayer, maybe also radiate our thoughts for the benefit, whatever merits that we have accrued from listening to today's Dhamma talk, and you have been following the past 5 Dhamma talks, then let's make this aspiration that all sentient beings be well and happy, that they be free from suffering. So let us all recite together. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from bliss, without suffering. May all sentient beings be equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Benny, for your sharing. We do have some time left for Q&A, and I see that we already have a few questions from our viewers in Zoom.
Sure.
I'll read out the first question to you, Brother Benny.
Okay.
Brother Benny, if we speak to build relationships in a business or office setting, is that considered to be idle chatter? During lunch, I try to eat alone to avoid gossip and idle chatter with my colleagues, but they think that I am not sociable.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a common question. And I think, first of all, we have to understand that we are lay people. All right. So we have always to check our mind that when it does not necessarily means that we have to be alone, all right, keep to ourselves. Because like in an office and environment, you know, when you are with people, then you can also do a lot of very positive things. For example, when people when you find that your friends are talking and the conversation or the chat turns into malicious talk, change into harsh speech, then what you should do is then you should try to divert the talk into something that is more neutral. Talk about something that will not create further discord or division among the people. Neither will it create your fellow colleagues, you know, creating even more harsh speech and unwholesome thoughts. So it depends on how committed you are to actually to put the Dhamma into practice, right? So you could actually practice what is called charita karma. So in other words, you actually participate in the discussion, in the conversation, by trying to counteract the negative thoughts that arise or the negative speech that has been raised, right? So you could actually do that, but you can only do that if you are part of the team, right? In other words, people accept you. Now you could choose, of course, the other way. You could have the varita part. People talk, you just keep quiet, you just don't say anything. You know, you could choose that. So it actually depends on your own individual disposition, right? If you are like a bodhisattva, right, then you look for opportunities to be with people who like to talk, who like to gossip. You like to be in the midst of people who like to have harsh speech. You like to be in the midst of people who like to have a malicious talk. Why? Because when you're in their presence, you try to actually change their mind. You try to actually transform the discussions, the thoughts that goes on over lunch or when you're free, you know, into something that is positive. If somebody is saying something negative about someone, so you can always, in very skillfully, by saying, oh, so and so, yeah, I heard about that. But you can also say things like, yeah, but you know, probably there could be reasons why such and such person behave in that manner. So what you have done is you're actually diluting the negative or the harshness that comes up from your colleague's mind, right? So you can actually influence and change. One of the competencies, if you're in management, one of the competencies that is highly valued is called impact and influence. And of course, you can impact and influence in a positive way. You can impact and influence in a negative way. So do not regard yourself as being, that you are not able to do anything when you're in the midst of friends who likes to gossip, friends who likes to chatter, who likes to talk about harsh speech or malicious speech. So you can actually help to create or dilute the negativities happening during the conversation. Okay?
Thank you, Brother Benny, for your sharing, and I hope that answers your question. We have another question: LGBT, lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transsexuals, as endorsed by a country, is not sexual misconduct? On the contrary, it is misconduct in other countries. So at times, sexual misconduct is very much law dependent and human defined.
Yes, you are absolutely right. As I did mention earlier on, for example, the 20 types of person not to be transgressed, as mentioned, not in this discourse, but I think it's in the commentaries, is that it's very much specific to the environment in India at that time when the Buddha was living. For example, there's even no mention about seeing prostitutes as been the third precept. So subsequently, modern commentators say that yes, that also constitutes as kamesu miccācara. So a lot of it actually is a result of the changing environment. Now, even the concept of homosexuality in the early text, right? There's no specific mention about homosexuality, but I think in the 4th century Abhidhamma Kosha, by Vasubandhu, I think homosexuality then is regarded as not as a form of sexual misconduct. Okay, so but of course in the Vinaya for the monks, as long as there is sexual activity, whether it's a male and female or a male and male or a female and female, that constitutes a defeat, parajika. So they will have to disrobe. Okay. So, but in terms of homosexuality, as you have rightly pointed out, in the West, you even have senators, you have governors, you have, I think you even have a prime minister, who is also publicly gay or lesbian. So, okay.
Thank you, Brother Benny. We have a rather short question here. Where can I buy Majjhima Nikaya books?
Where can you buy Majjhima Nikaya books? Is a question in the plural. Well, they've got different translations. The first is the Kantipalo's translation, which is published by Mahamakut. I don't think you can find it anymore, but you may be able to find in some libraries. There's another version, the Majjhima Nikaya, which you can find Access to Insight. This is translated by Bhikkhu Thanissaro. Access to Insight, INSIGHT. You can click on that, and I think you can find that. But the one that I have made reference to is actually a publication from Wisdom Publication, which is a Tibetan publishing house in the United States. So you can just Google Wisdom Publications, and then you will find, and then you type in Majjhima Nikaya, translated by Nyanamoli and Bhikkhu Bodhi, so you can buy a copy of that. Well, you could go to Kinokuniya. I'm not sure you can find it in Sukihoto, but Sukihoto is the Malaysian bookshop. Right? I think they only have it in Penang now. But get it online. I'm sure you can get it online at Amazon.
All right. Thank you, Brother Benny, for your smart shopping tips. The next question is from Facebook. Brother Benny, please verify whether it is correct to accept the notion that the last thought moment at the time of death determines the destination of rebirth. Thanks.
Well, the last thought moment only conditions your next immediate rebirth. All right. So it's been explained that the last thought moment is important because it conditions because the last thought moment is called cuti citta. Cuti, like in cuti, you're going on holidays, right? Cuti citta. And then immediately cuti citta followed by the patisandhi, the relinking consciousness. All right. So it is said that the last thought moment will condition your next immediate rebirth. But a lot also depends on what has been performed in both the previous existence as well as one's previous existence. If you had followed the Mahakama Vibhanga Sutta, then you would recall that sometimes, because of the last thought moment, all right, one may be reborn in a wholesome state, born in a happy state, but there is not sufficient supportive karma to support that next existence. So life becomes very short, or the person becomes very sickly, or then he had a short lifespan. He passed away. When he passed away, the past negative karma that was predominant, all right, would then take place, and then he'll be reborn in a negative place, in an unwholesome environment. So likewise, the last thought moment, the person may have been doing a lot of very wholesome action, very skillful. His conduct has always been in terms of in line with the Dhamma. He's a very devoted person, very generous. But just before he passed away, the last thought moment, all right, he had a very negative wrong view. And when he passed away, his immediate rebirth will be in an unwholesome state. But because of very strong, wholesome karma that is yet to ripen. So when he takes his rebirth in an unwholesome place, that birth or that life will be very short. Then he takes another rebirth again, and then he is reborn in a happy state. Right? There's a story during the Buddha's time about this monk. Been a monk. He's been doing a lot of good deeds. He's doing meditation. Then the story says that this sister who was actually showing him a piece of cloth to be offered to him maybe during Kahina. So, and the monk knew about that. But then so happened, I can't remember the actual story, but he died. So when he died, his last thought moment was the attachment to that piece of cloth which his sister was sewing for him, but which was not yet offered to him. But he was a very good monk. He was a practitioner. So because of that last thought moment, he was reborn as a flea or as a fly, all right, to that piece of cloth. All right? So, but because he has done so much wholesome deeds, so the lifespan as a flea or to that piece of cloth, which was very short. So immediately after that, as born as a fly, as a flea, he was then again reborn in a heavenly realm because of that store of very rich karma. All right. Okay. So that explains. So while the last thought moment is very important, it conditions one's past rebirth. One should not take consolation by saying that, then one should not worry about one's actions before that, because one's actions before that also are very important. One's past karma has got a lot of meaning behind it, implication. Okay.
I see. Thank you, Brother Benny. The next question is: if someone spreads rumors and backstabs you behind your back, should one accept it quietly instead of confronting the person and try to clear one's name?
Well, if someone says something about you and you know about it and you know it's not true, so there's nothing wrong for you to, with a calm mind, all right, to approach this person and ask him, is it true that this is what I heard? Because you obviously didn't hear from him, right? Unless you hear from him, that is a different. If you did not hear from him, you hear from somebody else, then you should then go back to the person, to the original person, and ask him, is it true that this is what you say? And if he say it is true, then if it's not true, what he said, then you should correct him. Then you should explain to him, maybe it's important for me to correct the situation. So there's no necessity for you to just remain quiet and say, let him say whatever he wants. Okay? So you can always clarify the situation. In fact, by clarifying the situation, whatever negative thoughts, whatever thoughts of anger that person has about you may also be reduced. And when you do that, you are actually acting like a good bodhisattva. You're actually going to him and you help him to actually cultivate a positive mind. Isn't it? Okay,
Yep.
so you must do it, of course, with kindness and compassion. Right? So
Thank
one
you.
need not necessarily remain silent when something that is not true is said about oneself. Right? That's the key.
Thank you, Brother Benny. The next question we have is that people commented, if you be a good one, always offer help, people may take advantage on you or use you. What is your advice?
Well, compassion always comes with wisdom, right? That's why in Buddhism, we said that, yes, compassion is very important, but one must also have wisdom. You know, I don't think the Buddha was very firm in many ways. And sometimes when you read the Buddha's teachings, you know, he's basically a no-nonsense person, right? So likewise, one can be very kind, one can be very generous, but if one knows that one is taking advantage of one's generosity, okay, and to make it worse, all right, one is misusing one's generosity, then one has to reassess one's way of generosity. Then one has to ask, am I giving out of kindness? Yes, but am I giving out of wisdom? Okay, so one can be kind, one can be generous in many ways, right? But one should also see the intention. One is doing those good deeds, right? Using wisdom. One's wisdom is very important. Always balance it with wisdom, compassion and wisdom.
Thank you, Brother Benny. I think the importance here is to balance. We have a final question from WhatsApp. I'm finding it right now. Oh yes. The question says, if we break the fifth precept once in a while, like drinking while watching football or during festive seasons, are we accumulating bad karma?
The first and foremost, the precepts are not commandments, right? First, the precepts, as I think I mentioned early on, if you read the Pali word itself, it is a training rule, sikha. The first precept says, panati pata veramani sikha padang samadhiyami. So sikha. So we undertake this precept with understanding. We undertake this precept to train ourselves that we will not harm other living beings. So likewise, we observe this fifth precept so that our mind will be calm and clear, so that our mind will not be deluded. Okay? The reason why the fifth precept is mentioned in so many ways, in so many discourses, and even in the Sāleyyakā Sutta, is because we do not know when that so-called one sip or one drink ends up into two sips or multiple sips, or ends up we become an alcoholic. We do not know. So there's a danger to it. All right? It's called the fallacy of the slippery slope. Right? So you do not know when that's also that's the main reason. But if you are so confident that you just take one sip and that's it, and during festive occasion, during Chinese New Year, or because it is an official function, everybody drinks, so you take one sip. So, well, you have full control of yourself, right? Then that's fine. But then bear in mind that taking out alcohol is also breaking the fifth precept. So one should not say, oh, because I take once a day or I take once in the blue moon, that's not breaking the precept. It is mentioned in the precepts that it is one of the five precepts. Yes, we break that precept. Sometimes we also break the fourth precept, isn't it? Right? So important thing is one should not justify one's action. All right? And each time we break that precept, we should always make that aspiration, make that determination that one will not break it again. So it depends very much on you. In fact, in my case, especially my earlier years, I always make this aspiration. May I not be in an environment where I have to be where the conditions are such that I have to drink. All right. So I always make the aspiration of that kind of aspiration, rather than an aspiration to say, well, let me have an opportunity once in a blue moon, that I get an opportunity to drink. Then it is okay. So it depends. So aspirations are very important. Make that if you strongly believe in these 5 precepts, including the 5th precept, and you know the importance of observing all the 5 precepts, make that strong aspiration every time that, especially the 5th precept. Especially if you're working, you're in business. That let me not in a situation where I have to drink. And so far it works in my case. I don't have that. I don't have people saying you must drink. Okay.
I see. Thank you, Brother Benny. I think that's all the questions we have for today. Good. Because I understand that you are traveling later as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, on Facebook, please give a like and a heart to Brother Benny for his dedication and Dhamma teaching over these past 6 weeks. And all of us here at BAPS have learned a lot from you over the last 6 weeks. And on behalf of BAPS, from the bottom of our hearts, we would like to wish Brother Benny, in your spiritual journey, all the best, and hope that you can share more Dhamma with us in the near future.